Hello, good afternoon, everybody. It's my pleasure to introduce the Reuters Events Legal Leaders webinar in partnership with Pursuit, Unlocking Tech Success Together, the evolving relationship between GCs and their legal ops team. I'm Stefan Mullen, Head of Legal Events with Reuters Events, and it's my pleasure to introduce Cynthia Loren, Legal Director, Executive Advocacy for Pursuit. Over to you, Cynthia.
Thanks, Stefan. Hello, everyone. A warm welcome to today's webinar. My name is Cynthia Loren. I'm a legal director at Pursuit. We are the leading legal tech platform focused on optimizing outside counsel engagement. I'm incredibly proud of the work that we're doing at Pursuit to shift the paradigm in terms of working with our customers to ensure that efficiency, transparency, and diversity are intricately woven into the fabric of legal team selection and collaboration. And those are all things that go to the heart of today's discussion, which I'm thrilled to be able to moderate. It's a discussion on how GCs and legal ops teams can successfully navigate the complexities of both tech innovation and integration in order to achieve true and meaningful change. Before I introduce my fantastic panel today, just a few housekeeping items. So we've got about just under 60 minutes for the session, lots to cover. I'm going to break the discussion up into three key areas: effective collaboration, driving change management, and identifying and evaluating tech solutions. We want to make sure that this session is interactive and that you walk away with some practical takeaways. So please ask questions, share insights. We're going to leave the final 10 minutes or so just for Q&A. So Stefan, please help us stay honest and on time so that we can get questions in right at the end. I'm sure we're all familiar with how Zoom sessions work, but there is a chat and Q&A function at the bottom of the screen. So please engage with what's going on. I know my panel have lots of experience, and I'm going to let them speak in a minute. But ultimately, this space and time is for us to learn collectively. And that happens when people ask questions and also share insights about their own experiences. So please do engage. Okay, so let's get started. Really excited to introduce my panel. I'm going to ask each of them to tell us their name, job title, company they work for, and then just to give us a little insight into who they each are, I'm going to ask them to tell us what is their current favorite app on their phone and why they love it. And it doesn't have to be anything to do with work. We just want to be nosy and find out a bit more about you. So let me start with Caitlin.
Thanks so much, Cynthia, and hi, everyone. Glad that you're all on the call. My name is Caitlin St. Vincent Welsh. I'm a tech lawyer, but I'm also head of global legal operations at Zurich Insurance. And this is probably a bit nerdy, but my favorite app at the moment is our Zurich Chat app, which is the Chat GPT from Zurich. And when I asked it, what makes an innovative lawyer, it told me embracing tech. Well, the top two are embracing tech and collaborating with other professionals. So that's exactly what we're doing today. So another reason why I love it. Thanks, Cynthia.
Love that. Thank you. Jeff.
Yeah, hi, Cynthia. Thank you. And good afternoon to everyone. My name is Jeff Langlands. I work at BT. I'm the General Counsel for Corporate, Digital and Networks, which are some of the divisions within BT. I've been here for about 15 years and had various roles across the legal team in that time. My favorite app, well, given Cynthia's given one that's very in the moment, work-wise, Microsoft Copilot. We've got some licenses in legal, and we are really enjoying having a bit of a play around and learning what it can do. So that would be my work one. But closer to home, my son is 11. He has just started a new school that is a bus journey away, and the school provides an app that means I can absolutely track him every second of the day when he's on the bus, off the bus, forgotten everything, and all the rest of it. And it's very cool. And that has made it onto my my home screen on my phone for sure.
Love that. Thanks, Jeff. Chris.
Hi, Cynthia. Hi, everybody. I'm Chris McCloy. I'm Senior Vice President in the Outside Counsel Management Team at Citi. That sits within the Global Legal Solutions Department that drives forward our legal ops teams. In terms of my favorite app, Jeff, it is also tracking, but I love Flight Radar 24. So if I see a plane, I can track where that plane's going to. I'm a huge aviation geek. So I'm not getting anything like work productive, but that's my favorite app at the moment.
Great stuff. Thank you. Thank you, all of you. Okay, so we're going to jump in with some questions in a minute, but I just want to take the temperature in the room, in the virtual room. So we've got 2 quick polls that we'd like to launch. Stefan, if we can launch the first one, and we just invite everyone in the audience to respond. So the first one is about who is driving technology projects for the legal team within your organization. So we'll give you a couple of seconds just to respond on that. Interesting. Dancing about quite a bit. Great stuff. Okay, I think we can stop with that one. That's brilliant. And then if we can launch the second one, which is about those outside of the legal team who are involved in tech adoption efforts. Great. Okay, panel, all seen that? All seen the results? Okay, great stuff. So we're going to come back to that. Thank you very much to our audience for just engaging with that. Right, so let's jump in. First things first, let's talk about effective collaboration, what that looks like. So I'm going to get each of you just to paint a picture for us of what the legal team structure is at your various organizations. And then tell us a little bit about the key ingredients from your perspective that make for effective collaboration between GC and legal ops. Caitlin, if I can start with you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Cynthia. So we are about 600 legal professionals globally, broken up mainly into the regions. And then we have the corporate center in Zurich, and that's where I sit with my team. And then we have legal ops also in our Z&A team. So I think the most important ingredient for us is really the alignment with our group general counsel. And we did that by creating a strategy. So we're one global legal team focusing on people, culture, and performance to achieve our mission and our purpose, which is the Zurich purpose. And that's our North Star. So everything we do aligns with our North Star and our strategy and those strategic themes. And Katja, who's our group general counsel, she's very supportive, and we really drive together. We're all in the same boat, going in the same direction. And I think that's a really important ingredient to success of transformation and implementation of operations initiatives.
Great. And Chris, can I come to you? Does it look any different at Citi or similar themes?
It's a very similar theme in terms of structure, but I think in order to have successful collaboration, you really need to be giving the legal ops teams a seat at the table at the beginning. I think we need to really break down the thought that legal ops is a support function or a back office function, and have them fully involved at the beginning. Because once the legal ops team is there, we are able to see on the ground what the issues are for the legal teams and help drive forward a solution or look for a practical solution. So you need to have that real partnership and together to bring forward the collaboration.
Great stuff, thank you. And Jeff, can you talk to us a little bit about BT, the structure, and is it the same in terms of having legal ops at the table, or is it set up slightly differently?
No, I mean, I agree with Chris, and we do have legal ops at the table as well. So the legal team in BT, or actually it's legal compliance, regulation, and COSEC is how it's currently set up. And there's a number of divisional GCs, of which I'm one, we have our head of compliance, head of data around the table as well, but we also have our legal head of legal ops. The role reports into me in my capacity as corporate GC, because it's across the whole company. But we have the role around the table for exactly the reason that Chris said, which is the best way to ensure that they know what's going on and can influence general counsels, and ensure that we have consistency of kind of change management across the function. We certainly feel it's important that they have a seat around that table, and that's kind of, I guess, your secondary question around what's the how do we collaborate and be effective. I think it starts there. It starts with that sort of symbolic gesture to the whole of the organization that legal ops is part of that leadership team, and that tone from the top that legal ops is there to drive that change management and work with the leadership team to achieve that, I think is crucial, because a lot of the time they will face resistance, and people will feel like they know exactly what they are doing and how they do it is just fine, and they don't need to change it. And therefore, I do think it's important that there's that tone from the top of everyone's in it together, and we get consistency of how we deliver service across the function. So that's how we're set up.
Caitlin, do you want to add to that?
Yes, absolutely. I agree with both Chris and Jeff. I would also say that it's also important that we all feel part of this journey. So it's not just the GC's voice, it's not just the legal ops at the table. Really, we all have a role to play. And I think most in-house teams, at least, I would say most, are transforming. We have to stay relevant. We have to embrace technology. So I think from this change management piece, we all have to feel we're part of this journey and we want to be on this journey. And what we do at Zurich is create global legal focus groups. So the collaboration is really across the global legal team, and we invite everybody to come and participate, whether it's in a Zurich Chat task force or if it's in a data focus group, or we have a number of different strategic topics, but we really invite everybody to come and be part of this journey and contribute. And I think that really helps.
So it's clear what it looks like when it's working well. I guess, the cynic in me would then ask, so what are some of the hindrances to successful collaboration? And what are some of the warning signs that potentially, you would see or should be aware of if there is going to be an issue in this relationship between GC and legal ops? I understand, obviously, having a seat at the table is imperative, and that's the starting point. But when there are issues, what are the issues caused by? If I could come to Jeff first.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I do think inevitably when you're trying to change things, there can be resistance, and that can be from the divisional GC in our case right down across the team, and that comes from a feeling that maybe we're different. Maybe change doesn't really apply to lawyers. Maybe stakeholders within the organization really love the structure and the support that they get from their teams, and therefore, if it ain't broke, then why do I need to change? And I think so. I think that can show up sometimes. But Caitlin's absolutely right. From a BT experience, we absolutely need to change, both as a company and as a legal team. We all do, and therefore having that consistency is spot on. I think other roadblocks you can face. I think if individuals don't feel the benefit of change or legal tech, and they don't, and it's not easy to use, and they don't, feel that benefit immediately. We're all consumers to some degree. Then you can lose them, and therefore, I think starting with some quick wins in terms of change and really focusing on things that will make it easier for our colleagues in doing their jobs day to day means that you can get them on side and get some ambassadors. And if you get some ambassadors from within the teams who are talking about, adoption of a new tool or whatever it is, then you're halfway there, because it's not coming from the top. It's not coming from legal ops. It's coming from peers around the organization, and that really helps. I guess the last point I would make is be thoughtful about what kind of change you are looking to introduce. I think some change is harder than others, and a lot of change, if we're honest, I think can be driven from financial constraints that teams are under. They need to reduce spend, and that can come from quite painful people reorganizations or outsourcings, which can have consequences for individuals. That's tough. But if there's quicker wins, like, say, reducing external legal spend with law firms, then actually in-house lawyers tend to feel pretty good about that. They'd much rather that it was coming from that bucket of spend rather than from with their own colleagues and teammates. So I think being thoughtful about what it is that you prioritize in terms of changing, and if the driver is efficiencies and saving money, then that doesn't need to be a big team reorg. It could be just introducing some tools to save money in different ways.
Really great points. Thank you, Jeff. Caitlin and Chris, any other sort of roadblocks or signals that you see or look out for?
Yeah, I agree with Jeff. There can be resistance, but sometimes that just comes because people are afraid of the unknown. There might be an element of fear there. And what I find works really well is as Jeff said again, it's what's in it for you. Well, there's so many opportunities here for the team. And one of those great opportunities might be upskilling. So let's just take away the fear and get everybody comfortable with what we're doing here. And part of that, as I said, is the upskilling. So we do a lot more training and awareness now of tech topics. And I think that gets people more comfortable. And so we want them to be fit for the future. And that's important for everybody. So that's certainly something for them. It is lonely, I would say, sometimes driving change. So that for the people that are driving change, I would say don't give up, really believe in your vision and keep trying to move forward with the team. Don't try to isolate yourself and get defensive or upset. This change can be difficult. Try to stay positive and don't give up. And then, of course, change is BAU. So trying to incorporate that, trying to have that mindset that this is part of our everyday. So it's not a big change. Let's manage and move on. Change is happening every day. So let's just get used to it. That's what I would say, Cynthia.
Love to pull on the string a little bit of sort of partnering with others. So both Jeff and Caitlin, you've kind of made that point about, it can be lonely. So look outside, who are, in other teams. Who for you are some of the essential partners and teams within your organizations that just help support the strategic vision and perception of the legal department? And maybe if I could come to you, Chris, first, just to see, what does that look like at City? Who are you partnering with outside of the legal team?
Well, outside of the legal team, you really have to include other people who are really rolling out tech solutions. Because something that I was interested whenever we were talking about change management, it was very people focused, but you can also have different tech solutions that are out there and being rolled out at the same time. So you need to make sure that you're working with the other tech teams to ensure whatever you have that's rolling out within the organization, and we have this at City, that it also matches another tech solution. And that could be a billing system, making sure that aligns with your engagement and platform that you've put into place. So include the tech teams, and also outside of legal, there may be things that you are starting to overstep on. So if you are trying to use a new product to change the way that you're perhaps engaging temporary legal staffing, you will have an issue there with the sourcing department who have traditionally done this. So it's really about thinking which departments are going to be impacted outside of legal, and how are we going to deal with those, and what's the best way forward for the overall organization and not just the legal department.
Great stuff. Any other sort of insights from Caitlin or Jeff before I ask my next question?
Yeah, I would just jump in. We collaborate a lot with our head of AI. This is a huge topic, I think, for most organizations now, and he's really an amazing leader. So we get him involved in our AI task force. And I think related to your point, Chris, he's then able to tell us what's in the organization so that we're not recreating the wheel. So if we have some use cases that are quite similar to what another function has already developed, then he can tell us. So I think that's key with collaboration, that you are getting all the information you need and you're not recreating something that already exists. And I think in large organizations as well, you have to always simplify. You have to think about how can we make this easy and not more complex? And that's often using what already exists, where of course it's relevant. So I would say we collaborate a lot with the AI team and any other business functions where we say it, Zurich, still with pride. So if it's already there and it fits, then we reuse it. We don't rebuild.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only build I'd put on that is, quite often other departments have deeper pockets than the legal team, and therefore piggybacking on someone else's investment is got to be kind of option one. And a lot of the tech that we use, if you think about, we're all document heavy in legal teams, but so are other functions. We've got a contract management team, we've got a procurement team. They are also document heavy, and therefore the opportunities to kind of use one tool across all three departments, has a very strong commercial rationale, as well as, simplifying the number of tools that you've got across your company.
Yeah, that's a great point. And just to that, so before we move on to sort of talking about change management, I do want to just ask about the role of outside counsel firms. So invariably there'll be a number of them listening in today. What is for you, what role can law firms play when it comes to supporting that collaboration between GCs and the legal ops team? And if you have a specific case study or story that you can share on a law firm proactively supporting in that way, that would be great.
I love this question, because we recently did our deal week, which is drop everything and learn. And we do this twice a year. This is to foster and encourage a learning culture. And we collaborated with DLA Piper, with Freshfields, with Bird & Bird. And they came in and participated in this deal week. So we had DLA talking about AI, so brilliant basics, everything you need to know about AI today. And then they also did a road testing session with our Zurich Chat task force. So we went through all of our use cases with DLA Piper and we really road tested them. And that's where we also got insights. Is this also something that we could buy off the shelf, or is it already existing in the market? And that was hugely beneficial for us doing this road test exercise. We also did it with Bird & Bird, and then we had Freshfields also presenting some of their tools and tech. So that was an excellent collaboration, and we will continue to do that with the law firms.
Great to hear. Jeff, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I think, if this doesn't sound too arrogant as an in-house client, I think it's now it's mandatory for law firms. I think the days of just giving, and to be fair to the law firms, they completely get this, but I think we need to collaborate on changing the profession, but certainly in terms of legal tech, we shouldn't see ourselves as different in that sense. Many of us came from private practice, and vice versa. And I think collaborating on how we move things forward is absolutely essential. And we've had some super examples of where law firms are totally open to it. And in fact, we're halfway through our panel review process at the moment. And one of the things that we put into our our process is that whichever of our, and we'll probably have, I don't know, we've got about 15 firms at the moment, whichever firm over the lifetime of the next panel demonstrates the most improvement from a legal tech perspective, and we share the efficiencies and the benefits of that with the law firm, will get an automatic spot on the next panel without having to pitch, because we think the transition that we're going to make as in-house legal teams is so profound over the next few years from a Gen AI perspective, etc., that rather it's difficult now to say how it's going to change. Everyone's got an opinion, but it's difficult to be sure about that. But we definitely know that we're going to change, and therefore whoever sort of goes with us on that the most, then they will get the benefit of an automatic place. So it's certainly hugely important for us.
That's very a novel idea. It's certainly the first time I've heard that as a concept, and I really love that idea. It's very practical as well, just in terms of things that organizations can be thinking about. So thank you for sharing that. Chris, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's so important to have the law firms being part of the conversation. It's essentially like a middleman between ops and GCs in the initial stage of that integration. Because I find that a lot of times, as soon as I came into this role, it was like we were all operating in different wavelengths, and the firms were on the ground with the issues. And we had a very large firm at Citi come across and help us build a solution to our legal bill review program. We were rolling out in the UK, and that was something where I didn't really have the expertise, and I didn't know the pain points of the firm or internal Citi of where the glitches were happening and what was the issue. So we had our firm actually help us build the solution. And through that, they were able to build something that they knew worked internally for the firms and also for our organization. And that helped the relationship between ops and the GC, because we were getting less problems come across. We were getting less, this isn't working. Instead, the firm was stepping in there to help build a product that allowed us to all integrate together. And that was extremely useful for us. And now we get a lot less pushback and more buy-in from our legal departments.
That's great. Thank you. Some really, really practical insights there. Conscious that we are already at past, so I want to quickly whiz through and talk a little bit about change management, and then we're going to talk about evaluating tech. So we've already sort of referred to change management, and I know, Caitlin, you talk about it as being, business as usual. Can you talk to me a little bit about some of the strategies that you recommend when you're adopting new tech, but also just sort of give us a really quick definition of what you mean when you're talking about change management, because I know that definitions can vary and it means slightly different things in different places. So if I can come to you first, Caitlin, and then everyone else can jump in.
Absolutely. Thanks, Cynthia. So definition of change management. Yes, you put me on the spot a little bit there. Yeah, well, I guess it's, we're always changing. So it's how do we get from the start to the end with a good, impactful result? It might go up and down and around, and there might be some disasters along the way, but at the end of the day, we want to deliver a result that's going to have an impact. So I would say the change manager is from getting from A to B with a successful result at the end. Also with happy customers, that's also important. We always think about change management in the context of ADKAR, which is awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement. So every time we have a new product that we want to roll out, or new tech, or whatever the change is, we start with the awareness, really making, firstly, our GC, like our General Counsel, aware this is what we want to do, get her buy-in, and then the executive team, and then we cascade down. We really do a huge amount of work to create the awareness around this new initiative. And then understand, is there desire? We've created the awareness now, but do people really want this? Now that they understand what it is, do they want this? Do they think it's going to have an impact? And if there's no desire, then we really need to assess if this is the right way forward, or whether we need to approach this slightly differently. You really can't keep pushing ahead if there's no desire. And then the knowledge. So the knowledge about what's coming next. What is this? What does this program look like? Ability, really, we need to make sure that people can, whatever the initiative is, they can use it, or they can get involved or engaged, or they've got the skills. There's no point rolling something out if people don't have the skills to use it. And then reinforcement. It's a lot of repetition that I do. And I do think that's important. You can't not do that. You have to be very, very disciplined on a consistent message all the way through in various different formats. You know, we've got town halls, we've got workplace, we've got newsletters, we've got team meetings, we've got leadership meetings, we've got so many ways of communicating, but really making sure you're consistent with that message so there's no ambiguity, no confusion, and people get that message. So I don't want people to be missing out on that. So I also really encourage our executive team to be cascading these messages all the way through the teams, so it's well understood. So that's ADKAR: awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement.
Great stuff. Thank you. Jeff, I see you smiling away.
Yeah.
Thoughts, strategies, top tips?
Yeah, I certainly can't compete with that. That sounds fantastic, Caitlin. I think, you know, a lot of similar points. I mean, any change initiative, what's the problem you're trying to solve? Is got to be up there, and what's the desired outcome that you want, and why, and does everyone buy into that? And some of that might be we've just got to do it, but a lot of the time it will be because there's a need, there's a desire, as Caitlin said. So I completely get that. And then the importance of communication in every which way. You know, people will hear what they want to hear, and you've got to continue to deliver the message. But if they feel like it's helping them, I mean, a lot of the ideas we get is from our engagement surveys with our people, where we're saying to them, and one of our lowest scores across BT actually is it easy to get things done here? And we're not alone, right? Loads of big companies, you know, it's a complex environment, and therefore when we get the feedback, we always ask for specifics. Give us some examples, give us some verbatims, and that forms the basis of how we develop our strategy on change. What is it that our people are telling us is a real problem for them and they're really struggling with, and how can we look to address that? And therefore, you know, having that continuous loop of this is what, you know, you said, this is what we did. And then having ambassadors from within the teams, as I said earlier, I think is in many ways more powerful than them hearing it from, you know, from divisional GCs or anywhere else.
Yeah. And so let me be devil's advocate here. You know, change is tough. We all accept that in any context, but particularly in a professional context, where you've got the awareness, the need is clear, but there is resistance, or there is just, you know, a lack of desire to have the change. You know, lawyers quite often, and I can include myself in this, you know, we're constantly being told that we're very conservative about change and very cautious. So how do you navigate that? You know, how do you deal with instances where, particularly in the context of tech implementation, you're facing resistance? If I could come to you, Chris, first, and feel free to share, you know, without giving names, but any specific instances, and, you know, how you've got around those.
No, of course, I can actually talk about Pursuit itself. And whenever that was being rolled out at City, you were getting a lot of pushback because this is a complete change to the status quo of how we are engaging our firms. Some of the main people within City who are used to just picking up the phone and calling a partner or going out by email to firms weren't able to do that anymore. So you were getting the resistance back, and you were also getting, this isn't suitable to be put through as an RFP. We can't do a fixed fee for this or an alternative fee arrangement. So what you do right away is put in place a sort of pre-mortem and predict what exactly you think is going to go wrong within certain teams. And the way we actually have done this, the way we have preempted the resistance and dealt with it, is we know that those questions are going to come back. We know that the litigation team are going to say this isn't suitable to be put through as an RFP. So what we do instead is we think about templates that we can use, and having everything pre-built for the lawyers. So once we are hit with that resistance, we have an answer and we actually know what to do to make it successful. And something I think is really important with change management is don't be a pest. I think that can be a really touchy subject whenever you're constantly sending emails and having a sort of shadow over the lawyers, because this is a major change for what some lawyers have been doing for 20 plus years. So I would really recommend holding their hand through the process, at least at the beginning, and then in a couple of months, if there still is a resistance, you can think about ways to have more strength in your implementation if you need to have like proper guidelines put in place. But hold their hands and really think, what are they going to have issues with and how can we think ahead on how to solve those?
Great stuff. Thank you, Chris. Full disclosure, everyone, I didn't know that Chris was going to use Pursuit as his case study, but obviously I'm thrilled that, that's the example that's been used in terms of, facing resistance initially, but actually then achieving a really successful implementation. So thanks for that, Chris. Caitlin, Jeff, I don't know if you want to pipe in with anything.
I guess I would say it's also about just picking up the phone or having a coffee with someone, just really getting to the bottom of the fear or the concern, or maybe there's a misunderstanding or a misalignment. It could be as simple as just having that conversation and really spending more time listening and understanding rather than driving forward. So I do think that's an important part of this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and the only thing I'd add, I suppose, from personal experience is I think when you are engaging with business people, if I could put it like that, our colleagues who aren't in legal, they, and I'm just picking one example here around data points, they have far more data points and KPIs and numbers, frankly, in how they run their parts of the organization than legal tends to have. And I think when you're in that environment, you quite quickly realize that kind of anecdotal evidence or stories, the team's really busy, we're advising on some really important stuff, someone worked really hard on this. It needs to be a little bit more fact and data based than that when you get to those meetings. And I think the team understanding that and actually experiencing that can help a little bit in terms of, why are we wanting to capture certain data points, for example? It's because we want to be able to speak the language of the business. And actually, this is good for our department if we are perceived to be a legal team that actually kind of manages metrics and makes decisions based on data rather than anecdotes. And I think that's important as people move through an organization and they start to get a bit more senior or get around those different business tables, then they can see that actually we're a little bit of an outlier compared to everyone else. And then, do we need to be an outlier, or is there something that we should be doing to try to get parity with other colleagues from other parts of the organization?
All great points. Thank you very much. So I want to use the last segment of this before we go to Q&A, just to talk about figuring out what tech solutions people should be thinking about. I know we obviously ran the poll right at the top of the hour with who else is involved in the rollout, but and a couple of you have mentioned sort of tech team, AI team, etc. With so many solutions out there in the market, it's really tough to work out what's good and actually what's going to be a genuine productivity enhancer. You all talked about your personal favorite apps, which are obviously having an impact in either your professional or personal life. Within your teams, how do you work out what the right solution is? And, are there specific types of criteria that you hold to in making that assessment? And if you want to limit that maybe to your top 3 things that you think about or look for, that would be great. If I can start with you, Chris.
Yeah, of course. Whenever you're going out and you're scoping the market, you have to have a very consistent approach with every single solution that you see. And if we're going to go into, I'm not going to do top 3, I'm going to do top 2. Simplicity. We really want to make sure that whatever product that you see, that it's going to be workable and very useful for our lawyers. So we would really go through a very stringent process of making sure that this is a user-friendly platform. The second thing that I think you really have to look for is what's going to be the real benefit to get the buy-in there at the beginning. And that comes down for us a large time is cost and time. We want to see how that can help us either free up time for our lawyers or reduce our overall spend. Whenever you're scoping the market, I would really recommend just to have 2 or 3 or more things in mind that you want to make sure that you tick those boxes, and it's not just a shiny new product that seems like it could be workable, that you're going to get the benefit after you agree to go forward with them.
Jeff?
Agree with all that, Chris, absolutely. I think overcoming the perception that tech is going to solve an underlying problem. We talk about that sort of people, process, then tech, and there's some basics that I think are good hygiene factors that an organization needs to have in place before layering on a tech solution. So whether that's kind of very clear workflows, or very clear playbooks, or even just the problem you're trying to solve, I think all of those need to come before you acquire a tech solution, because otherwise you're that sort of data in, data out. Is it quality data? Because the tech isn't going to be able to turn something into something else, really. So getting quality data, whether that's quality contracts, or whether that's policies, or whether whatever it is, that's a job on us first before we engage with any vendors to do it. And I think just be really clear about. One of the upsides of having a legal ops team is that they can have a dialogue with vendors in a way that actually a lot of the core legal team can't, because they don't have that. It's not their area of expertise. And they're enthusiastic amateurs, really. And what we really need is professionals that can have a conversation with vendors about the tech, be very clear about what problem they're trying to solve within a legal team in-house, and then be comfortable that the workflows and the processes are in place, that they have the buy-in from the rest of the leadership team, and then we make the investment. And I think small incremental improvements, quick wins, is crucial. A tech tool that takes 18 months to kind of embed, you've lost the room by that point. You need something that is quick, is easy, is really easy to use, just like the apps that we all mentioned. And then you get the buy-in of people when they use it, and they think, wow, this is making my life easier. So bit of lots of things there, Cynthia. It wasn't a nice succinct top 3. But those are some of the things that we think about when we're thinking about what we buy.
Great, thank you. And Caitlin?
Thanks, Cynthia. I agree as well with Chris and Jeff. I think they're all excellent points. And I would just reiterate again, really make sure you're addressing the need. What is the need? And then really define those requirements when you're going out to market. So as Chris said, you're really, really disciplined and structured about how you have those conversations, and how is this tool going to meet our needs? I think you also need to leverage your network. There's so many great events out there where people are talking about new tools and tech, and in these events, you can also talk to other people that have actually done the implementation. So really learn from their experience and get their perspectives and feedback before you go out and choose the tool. So I think that can save a lot of time, really just leveraging experience and knowledge from networks and from attending events. And then, of course, there's the integration. You shouldn't just buy anything off the shelf. You really have to collaborate heavily with your IT team that's familiar with the tech environment that already exists, and then they can advise on how well this new tool would integrate into that tech. And then the last point, and I've already mentioned this, but really make sure you understand what already exists within the organization, because maybe there could be tech and tools that could be leveraged without having to go to the market. And
actually, that's something we hear quite often, is that, you know, the best tech is the tech you've already got.
Well, also just I think this, just take Office 365. There's so many tools that people are just not even aware of. So I do think there's a lot of value in just taking what you have and just understanding more about the functionality and the capabilities. And that's a great opportunity also for lawyers. You know, there's all the power apps and so forth. It does require some upskilling, but it's an opportunity.
Yeah.
Even on the back of that, because I spoke about legal bill review, you don't always need to have a solution to bring in. You can build it yourself. So I think that's really important whenever you're scoping the market too. Is this something we have the skills to produce ourselves?
And just on that, so I was gonna say, Caitlin, I'm glad you talked about networks and events, and Chris, you've just mentioned sort of scoping the market. So tell us, what are there particular sources that you guys use in terms of market intelligence? And I just would love you to be really practical for people that are thinking, okay, where on earth do I start? So I know, you know, there are tons of events. Are there specific events that you particularly focus on? What kind of networks should people be trying to access in order to figure out, particularly from a legal tech perspective, what the best tools are and how it's working for people? Maybe if I can start with you, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, I think Cynthia's point around, Caitlin's point around your network, your peers. I mean, the first question we're going to ask any potential vendor is like, can you give us some reference customers or clients that we can speak to? And having an honest conversation about it, I think is number one. The fact that a legal ops team is plugged in, I think, to the market is super useful. And also, I think the law firms, almost all the law firms will have bought tech or built tech themselves, and almost all the law firms have consultancy type arms, or will just have an informal conversation with you, which isn't about a sale. It's actually just about, you know, if you've got the right relationship with your firms. And as I say, on the whole, we absolutely do. You know, they really want to work with us on this, getting their perspectives where they're slightly independent, and what's worked for them or what they're hearing in the market, I think, or indeed them even coming in and doing a little bit of work in your department and sort of saying, like, show me what you've got just now. And if you've got a great relationship, maybe they'll do that, you know, as a sort of value add service rather than as something you pay for. Maybe you think there's value in paying for it. But I think don't forget the law firms as a great source of knowledge about the market, because it is a part of their business. And for us as a legal team in-house, we all know we are not the product for the company. You know, we are there to make sure that we succeed as a company. But in law firms, the product is the legal support that they can give their clients, and therefore making sure they have the tools and the investment there is absolutely paramount to them. So we can lean on them and learn a lot from them and work with them. And I think that would be a big source of knowledge for a lot of people.
Definitely agree with that. Caitlin, events and networks you talked about, and any other sources? Are there?
No, but I would reiterate Jeff's point. It is really critical when you're looking at new products to talk to those references and just understand how well the tool was rolled out, the implementation, any challenges. That's key. And in addition to events, I just have individual discussions with a lot of people in my network, just regularly having meetings. How's everything going? What's your latest and greatest? You know, because we all have the same challenges. So it's very easy to have that dialogue, but there's really valuable exchange there. So also proactively reaching out and having those conversations one-on-one as well really helps.
Chris, anything to add?
No, I agree with that part, Caitlin. I think it's really important, even if a vendor or a product comes across, find out who their customers already are and who your counterpart would be. It's really useful because then you can have a conversation, not just to see if it would be useful for your corporation, but also how was it implemented and if they have any tips, because then you can have that buy-in from them and create a partnership going forward too. And that means in the future, if they have a question about a tech implementation or solution that you had, you've created new partnerships. So I think it's really important, especially in this industry, legal ops, is to know your counterparts and keep those relationships.
Excellent. So I've been told we've got 10 minutes to go. So thank you, Stefan, for keeping us to time. I've still got tons of questions that I want to ask, but I don't want to hog the session. So I want to ensure that our audience get as much opportunity as possible to put their questions to you as well. I can see 3 have come through, so I'm going to call those out in a minute. But just to encourage those that are listening in, if you have got burning questions, things that you want more information on, this is the time to do it, because we really want to make sure that you get as much valuable information and takeaways from this session as possible. Okay, so first question that's come through in the Q&A. Which budget do your tech/AI services and investments come from? Does legal pay for them? Is it IT, or is it the business directly? And I'll let you decide who wants to take each of these questions.
I could take that one. It's a great question. It's really important. We haven't spent that much time talking about the paying of budgets and investment and returns on investment and business cases, etc. So in our organization, we it's a bit of both. And part of my role was General Counsel of Digital, which is basically our IT department within BT. Has been to sort of lobby for some investment for the legal team, as well as for our sales teams and our service teams across the organization. And we've had a little bit of success there. They recognize that it's important that we get some great technology as well. But we also have a budget within legal, and we utilize both, as you'd expect. But it is tough, and I think one of the hardest things is that business case, because are you especially with Gen AI, which we haven't really touched on, but those licenses are expensive and going to be expensive, and it's not all going to be free Chat GPT on that, and therefore what does each legal team really want to invest? And what is the return? Is that return going to be just, hopefully higher engagement and people really focusing on great quality legal work, which is what we want? But is there actually going to be a financial benefit as well? And how do we put a price to that, and that we're willing to stand behind when we make our investment case for that particular tool? So I think it's a really good question. In our organization, it's a bit of both.
Any other responses to that, or can I go to the next one? Okay. All right. Second question. In your experience, how well does legal leadership understand the scale of in-house IT resources, governance, and support as necessary? And I think this one's for you, Chris, because it says, especially as regards Chris' well-taken suggestion about it's worth legal asking itself, do we really need to bring a new solution, or can we build the solution ourselves? What are the minimum requirements?
I think it really depends. The first part of the question, it really depends how much legal leadership understand the solutions, and we're getting better just as we have more integration with legal ops teams and with other departments outside of only legal. That does get better. But in terms of what do you need to build a solution, or what are the minimum requirements to be able to say, okay, let's do this? Speak to the tech team and look at the underlying, can this even get past compliance? Is this something we have the regulatory approval for, or will it come back to us? Those are really important things to look at from at the very beginning, before you even have the question about how to build it. See if it's compliant in your organization, not just in one region, but globally, especially at City, because we are operating on a global level. We have restrictions in terms of compliance, legislation globally. So you need to make sure that any product that you would build would be workable in every jurisdiction. before going forward with, okay, we have the resources here to build that. We have the right tech here to take this forward. We have also the team and the resources to build it, because sometimes that can be a struggle too. And it's easier to bring in the products wherever you have a team dedicated to it than finding the capacity within. So all of those questions, but I would begin with first, is this something we can take forward, or would we be potentially hit by this from a regulatory perspective down the line?
Great stuff. There's I can see a question here about panels, and actually we're going to be running a webinar specifically on panels. So I mean, unless any of the panelists want to speak to that, I would say come to the next webinar, because that's specifically on panel best practice. But let me just ask this question about sort of baseline needs assessment, because I do think that's an important one. So how should you do a baseline needs assessment for legal tech solutions that can improve workflows? Are there specific resources that you would point to?
Happy to jump in on that one. Look, I think get some experts in, and you don't need to pay for them necessarily. You know, and happy to chat on that. As I said earlier, law firms have consultancy arms that are reasonably sophisticated in that, but you may also have people in your own organization who sit outside the legal team that could really help you with you know, a fresh look at your department and what tech solutions might help. So I think use experts rather than you know, people with different skill sets that might not know the market or know your needs as well, and be happy to give some recommendations offline if that's helpful as to some of the organizations that we found pretty useful.
Yeah, and I would also just add to that, I don't know if anyone uses the legal design thinking process, but it's about empathizing first, and if we're building something new, the person benefiting might not be the legal team, it might be the business. You know, maybe the business is really struggling with one of the processes that we have because it's simply too complex or too long or too painful or whatever it is. So I agree, talk to the experts, but also talk to your clients. So talk to the business. What are their concerns? So really start with this empathize part of the process, and it goes empathize, and then it goes to ideation, and then it goes to prototyping. So I think that's that legal design thinking can also apply to when you're thinking about a new you know, optimizing a process or a new tool.
That's great. Thank you so much. I know we've got literally 2 minutes left. And I think was there one more question? I know there's a question about your legal ops team. So actually that's quite useful. Just if you could shout out really quickly the size or the number of people in each of your teams. I'm not sure if we talked about that at the top of the hour.
I have 3. I've got a very small team.
Jeff, how many at BT?
That's a great question. We've got 6 in our legal tech team, none of whom are lawyers or anything like it. And then we've probably got another 3 or 4 who either do help us with our financials or with our management of our partners, our law firms and our alternative legal providers. So what's that? Maybe about 10 in total.
And Chris,
yeah, at Citi, so it's very large in the Global Legal Solutions department, but within outside counsel management, we have around 9 team members.
Brilliant.
19
Guys,
or 90? 19.
Yeah, 19.
Okay.
So quite a range. We've completely run out of time, but thank you so much. Reuters events, I think we need to have a second session because there was a ton of stuff that we would have loved to have jumped in and discussed. But what I would do is just encourage you to connect with us. We're on LinkedIn. There will be a recording. So I know there was a question about whether this has been recorded. There will be a recording. So please do have a listen through. Pursuit itself constantly organizes knowledge sharing and sessions, webinars. As I mentioned, we have one on panel best practice coming up in the next month or so. So I'd encourage you to sign up for that. These are conversations that we are constantly facilitating because we just, we value them and we value people like Caitlin, Jeff, and Chris who are doing the work. So a huge thank you to my wonderful panelists for being really generous with sharing your insights and talking to us about, how you're skillfully integrating technology. I know this is a conversation that will continue, so I look forward to having many more of those. If you enjoyed the session and you would like to learn more about what we're doing at Pursuit to enhance collaboration between GCs, legal ops, and outside counsel firms, please do get in touch. I'm on LinkedIn and my details will be shared after the session. And yes, thank you so much for your practical insights this afternoon, our panelists. We'll round it up there because I know you've all got busy days. Stefan, I don't know if you want to jump back on.
All right, there we go. Thank you so much, everybody. And I shall see you at the next one. Take care.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Cynthia.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Cynthia. Thanks, Stefan. Thanks, everyone. Bye.